Joining us now here on In the Circle on D1 Softball. She is the head coach of the Arizona State Sun Devils, been the head coach since 2023. We've had her on the show since her days at Ball State when she was the head coach there, was an assistant at Texas, of course, an All-American, great at Notre Dame, one of the great Fighting Irish players ever played professionally. Good resume, friend of the show, Megan Bartlett, back with us here at In the Circle D1 Softball. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Well, how does it feel now to be back in the Big 12? Because in your case, you were in the Big 12 just a few years back when you were the assistant at Texas. Got to help Texas get to the National Championship Series in the World Series in 2022. So you know the league a little bit. So it's not been too long. But what's it like to be back here now in the Big 12 and interact with some of the coaches like Glenn Moores of the world that have been in the Big 12?
Yeah. We're excited. I think, of course, everyone is sad about that we won't see any more Pac-12 softball, right? That's a lot of history over the years, and it was a great league, but this is a new adventure, and we're really, really excited about it. We're prepping for a little bit colder weather. The girls are getting well versed, and I'm like, okay, everyone's going to need some headbands. We need gloves. We need parkas. And they're like, for what? And I was like, well, it's a good thing we have some Midwest kids on this team because that piece will be a little bit different in all seriousness. But yeah, we're excited for the competition. The Big 12 is a great league. The commissioner is visionary. I think that front office staff does a great job, and it's still great competition. So we're just ready to get started at this point.
Talking to some of the coaches in the league, they told me about a meeting that you all had in person in Dallas. That was one of refreshing, a fun meeting. Just first of all, because you're all in person, and one of the things I found interesting was some of the coaches in the Big 12 are saying, "Hey, the cool thing is like you and Caitlin and Amy have brought some fresh ideas coming over from the Pac-12, and then vice versa that you've obviously taken some ideas from the Big 12. You've kind of seen both sides of it recently there, but do you sense that from as far as that camaraderie among the coaches there in that meeting?"
Yeah, absolutely. They have certainly been extremely welcoming. Many of them I knew, right, from my earlier stint in the Big 12. But it's a group of really smart, really driven people um, that I think do the job for the right reasons. So it has been certainly, I think, in the wake of college athletics and the House settlement, right? All the change we've had in the last 5 years and now all the change that's to come in the next 5 years. We certainly have to, as a coaching unit, we have to lean on one another and make sure we're a united front and we're doing the right thing for the game and, of course, the right thing for our kids and for our conference. So those relationships in just where all the turmoil in college athletics right now are extremely important. But it's been really nice, actually.
It's been really nice, and you've got a taste of it. You've seen how the other teams on campus have done. Our football had an incredible season there, getting to the playoff and getting to winning the Big 12 there. Do you sense your players maybe get a feat, maybe get a kind of a vibe out of that could rub off there with that on-campus success there? I mean, volleyball had a great season as well in the Big 12 in their debut season. Is that something that you think your players have taken notice and could kind of thrive about?
Absolutely. I mean, my goodness with football. So yes, they had this incredible season and went to the college football playoff. They were voted last in the league. Like that was that was a zero to hero year. That is magic, right? Coach Dillingham and that staff has done such an outstanding job. And then JJ at volleyball, I mean, he is brilliant. The guy's an absolute rock star. And right heading into, believe this will just finished his second season too. So I think rising tides raise all ship. I think that excitement and now that level of expectation, you're seeing it really across the board in many, many of our sports. I mean, really all of our fall sports were very, very good. So yeah, I do think the girls are starting to feel some, why not us, right? Some expectation departmentally. Our administration has certainly continued to make really sizable investments in this program to get it back right into a level of prominence. So yeah, it's real. I'm really proud to be a Sun Devil. I'm super, super grateful for not only this group of kids and of course my staff, but this administration and how they've supported the program moving forward, right? With the transition from Ray Anderson to Graham Rossini. Anytime you're right? Changing athletic directors, you never know. It could be a really brilliant fit, which this has turned out to be, or it can be a tough transition. So all good things happening at Arizona State right now, and certainly grateful for all the people who work so hard to allow these girls to go out and compete at the highest level they're capable.
Got a lot of new faces on this year's team. I feel like almost majority of the team is either freshmen or sophomores, and certainly most of them are new faces there. How do you build chemistry with those so many new faces there in the fall and into now here as you're getting close to the season? What has that been like, kind of with that chemistry building?
We're lucky. So it is a young team, right? A lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores, a lot of young ones that we're going to invest in and we'll see a lot of time this season. But we also have a wonderful leadership crew, right? Kelsey Hall does such a wonderful job for us. So, Kenzie Brown is in that same boat. AJ Murphy has been a welcome addition. I think, again, like she's been in postseason multiple times and understand what it takes and the level of sacrifice to get there. So the few veterans we have, I feel like they're strong communicators, they're strong leaders, and they continue to lead from the front. So it's certainly we're a young team, right? And there'll be some moments where I'm sure inexperience will shine a little bit, but they're also young and they're hungry, and we have some dogs in that class out of the young ones. So it's going to be fun to watch. I think this is the first time Arizona State's been young in a long time, but what the growth has looked like and what the future is going to look like is exceedingly bright. But it's been fun. The chemistry, we spend a lot of time in our culture and our clubhouse here. I mean, that's no secret, right? That was a big part of the reason that Ray Anderson and Ken Lanfear hired me from Texas. Um, so I do think that process, honestly, a big piece of it starts in the recruiting process. There are really no secrets when you go through the process with Arizona State, and you know that we are going to always value you as a person before a ball player, right? And I really take a lot of pride in how our staff connects with our young people, and they feel challenged, but they feel supported. They feel motivated, but man, they are pushed every single day. And I think that takes four really strong relationship builders to be able to push kids, I think, to their peak ability levels. Because anymore, there's a lot of distraction that pulls at these kids' time, right? I don't want to call school a distraction. That's certainly why they're here. But you think like the social media, the NIL, right? They're at this really formative years of their life, right? Trying to figure things out socially and kind of figure out who they are. So to really continue to have kids that are intrinsically motivated to not only be amazing on the field and work and grind and do all those things, but then understand how important the relationships are around them, and that we all continue to do our part in creating this really high level championship atmosphere, but it's grounded in sisterhood, and it is grounded in a lot of young women who sacrifice for the people around them. And that's not always sparkles and sunshine, right? Like it's when you have to have a hard conversation with one of your teammates about they're not doing the right thing or they need to work harder. The girls have bought into that and invested in it. And I think do a really good job in being accountable and kind of owning their piece in it, because they're young people. It won't certainly be a perfect process start to finish with any of them. But it is something we take a lot of pride in, and we work on really hard. So happy to report the vibes are in a good place and they're ready to play. They're ready to stop scrimmaging each other and beat up on somebody else. So
I feel like everybody's that feeling that way these days, right now, with the scrimmages. They're like, let's just play somebody else. You mentioned this freshman class. Let's talk about it, because I know you've told me about this freshman class now for a couple of years. Been working on this. A big class of eight, certainly a big number of freshmen there. You got certainly. Tell me a little bit about the identity of this freshman class and some of the highlights of these players. I know you got a few three pitchers, in fact, that you like a lot in this class with Tipton, and then certainly Krager and Scholl. So just tell me a little bit about this freshman class and how they'll contribute to Arizona State.
yeah, I mean, this class signed here with the intention of taking this thing back in Oklahoma City, right? And they continue to work and grind and invest in their development. And it's been a really pretty impressive, honestly. Um, but certainly they do. They have a really high expectation for not only their own performance level, but for the people around them. And we got some dogs in that class. Like they're tough kids, they're good ball players. And they didn't, they're not here to just look cute on Instagram and put on the jersey. Like they're here to grind and work and sacrifice and, you know, get the program back where we all expect it to be. So there's a lot of competitiveness, there's a lot of intentionality there, and they certainly do some things far beyond their years.
Let's talk about your team, the pitching staff in particular, and the return of Kenzie Brown. I guess that I'm going to be the first of many to ask you, how is she doing? Because certainly you didn't have her last year with the injuries, and that was part of the big story of the season last year. You just had dealt with a lot of injuries, especially in the circle there. So just tell us how she's doing, and how does the pitching staff overall look? Because obviously you'll depend on her for her experience in guiding the youngsters.
Certainly. And she's done a great job with that. Yeah, Ken's is ready to go, and we are thrilled to have her back. She certainly has some really special gifts on the mound. She competes well. She goes up, she goes down, she can move it off speed. But I do think Kenzie is a really powerful voice to echo Coach Manley's, right? They have certainly they've done a lot of work, my goodness, on not only kind of building her into the Ferrari she is on the mound, but just how well she competes and kind of the headspace that she gets in when she goes out to, it is this interesting balance of like if you're trying to be too fine and you're trying to try too hard and you're putting too much pressure on yourself, those things aren't going to work on the mound either, right? So just helping the young ones, I think, calm nerves a little bit, and understand timing and rhythm and tempo, um, right? Things that adrenaline and stress and not having the right mindset are certainly going to throw off kilter quickly. Those are hard things to work through, right? When there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders as, a freshman. And I will tell you, Cambry and Julianne soak up so much. Like they're both really, really, really smart kids and great athletes and great competitors. And Mika Lupi, I'm excited for her year too. I mean, I will tell you, Mika will not get outworked. I mean, not certainly, I would probably say not by many kids in the country. I mean, she is strong and she's smart. So the staff of four, they certainly all have a different strength, right? Whether it's the pitch profile, or command or how well they compete. They all four do really different things, but they're all four very, very good. So I'm really excited. I think they will be the stronghold of the foundation of what this becomes.
Yeah, Krager and Tipton, the two freshman pitchers you mentioned there. What's the comp for them? Like, what's the ceiling for them? I mean, there's a process of patience, right? When you're depending on freshmen, because there's going to be highs and lows there. But I get a sense you feel they can contribute right away and help right away here at Kenzie, and not have Kenzie have to carry the load.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. You know, Cambry is an A-plus competitor. I mean, she is. She did a brilliant job last summer. The Bombers won Alliance, and she was the last woman standing on the mound when that happened, right? But her command is excellent. She also has the luxury of not only having Coach Manley, who was one of the best to do it in the men's game, but she is so close to Kat Osterman, who was her pitching coach for many years until we got her. So it's not surprising that she's so tough on the mound, right? And she competes so, so well, because that was certainly a product of Kat's tutelage for many years, which we're so grateful for and super happy she's here. Julianne is this brilliant talent. They both, I mean, really for both of them, I think the sky's the limit as they continue to grow and mature and develop. Um, they will both be as good as they want to be, as hard as they train, and if they can stay healthy and take care of those bodies. But yeah, she is a really special talent too. I mean, what she can do with the ball is just flat out special. There's a lot of deception in what she does on the mound, which is pretty cool because she's going to make it tough on hitters.
Let's talk about your defense, because that's your background, that's your forte there. What you help there. How is it looking? And when you have so many young faces, a lot of new faces, how long does it take to develop that defensive chemistry and that identity that you would like to see out of your team?
Well, I'm happy to report that they're making it really hard on us. We went from like, oh my gosh, who's gonna play on the left side to now I feel like we've got really strong, especially defensive options, right? AJ Murphy is a veteran. She's got a ton of experience on the left side of the infield at this level. Very accurate arm. She's tall, she's long, she's got good reach. We actually brought a shortstop in mid-year. Grace Molitor, which she is an elite defender. Grace is going to do some really, 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 I think, special things on the left side of the infield. She pretty much can fluidly go between short and third, which is a harder trick than it sounds to do it really well with the appropriate footwork and timing. So for a kid that young to just jump in, she quite literally hasn't missed a beat, right? Like chucked her in practice 2 weeks ago and she was all ready and she'd studied the systems and all Haley's cues and she is pretty much fit seamlessly. Um, to Kyla Davis, she is going to do some really special things at third base. She just is like TK is twitchy and she's reactive. She can throw off the run. She's got a big arm. So that has been fun. Tiare Ho Ching is going to hold second base down for us this year, and she is just flat out an elite defender. You know, came from the Mercado pipeline, you know, the many, many greats that he has produced in college softball. And she just does not get sped up by the speed of the game. She is twitchy and she is fast. She's doing an excellent job at the plate for us too. But my goodness, like that kid can range base to base. She can off foot. And really, I think one of my favorite things about her, as we've gone through the recruiting process, is not only is she tough, like the kid's just a dog. Like she, again, like doesn't get frazzled, doesn't get sped up, doesn't feel sorry at any point. She just competes and gets back to it. But she has this really well-honed instinct, right? Like she understands ball playing, bat playing, timing. So she'll actually kind of start positioning herself and I'll look up and I'll be like, oh, why is RA in the 3-4 hole? And then next ball gets hit to her right. And you're like, oh, yep, that's what she's doing. She's using her spidey senses. So there's just a lot to be excited about and a lot to be proud of, especially with really all of them. But yeah, this group of freshmen is really our first on-track recruiting class. So they certainly knew the task they were signing up for.
They did, and then one of the other youngsters I'm intrigued about is Samantha Swan, your catcher, sophomore. Also, I believe played on the Bombers at travel ball, if I believe, if I recall. All right, see, my memory was good. I knew it. Tell me about her development and what you see from the catching position, because that's going to be a key too with your pitchers, especially the youngsters.
Yeah, Sammy girl. She is doing a great job. She worked her tail off last summer, right? I think she got a lot of time her freshman year. And I will tell you, the cool piece about Sam is like she is not only like gracious and a lovely human and a great ball player, she is really, really smart and she's very driven. So she spent the whole summer, right? She played in that the women's league, right, in Texas. There, you know, she's from Georgetown. So she had the luxury. She got to play a little bit, the lifting, the running, she got back to it in the cage. And from go this year, she has looked awesome. So we're really excited about Sammy. I mean, she works and she works and her teammates love her and she has this really gentle way of raising the level of the people around her, which is pretty cool.
That's huge for a catcher position. And then the outfield, you got Tanya Wendell there, coming off an all region season, led your team in hitting. Of course, Kelsey Hall, who you've played in the outfield as well in DP. How is she, doing there? And then how do you see your outfield overall from a defensive standpoint?
I like what I'm seeing right now. Tanya's another one, man. She does not take a day off. Sometimes we need Tanya to take more days off. I'm like, kiddo, your body's wrecked right now. Like, just chill. You got this. But same thing, like Tanya's a great hitter, and we knew that, right? She does. She just kind of has that gift of like her hands find the ball at the plate. She has worked really, really, really hard to be an excellent center fielder, right? The range, leaving her feet. She's worked extremely hard on her arm. And if anybody who's had to try and gain arm strength in college knows that, that is a thankless, boring, there's no way to cheat the grind process. And she's done it. So really excited. And again, Tanya's just such a proud Sun Devil, right? Like she grew up here. This was the dream. She got to come home and live it. And she certainly embraces this opportunity every single day with that intention. Like it's really cool to watch. We're hoping that Yaya Acuna, our left fielder, will be back sometime in the first couple weeks. She's still getting healthy, but we will be very excited with the addition of Ya again. And really, Ashley Mejia has been crushing the ball. She is a really steady, fundamentally sound outfielder. Right now goes through both of the wings for us pretty seamlessly. And as she is, she's a big personality and she plays with that big personality and she is so fun to watch play. So we're excited. They've been grinding, they've been working hard. I think the staff's done a really, really good job of especially knowing how young we were going to be. Like it has been a very methodical, very systematic, serious grind around here since we got them, the third week in August. And the kids have been awesome, right? Like anything that's been asked of them, they've done.
Tanya told me that she has never learned more about playing outfield and center field than what how you've taught her. And she said like it's been made her a better player and that you're the best technical coach she's ever had in any level. What it to describe your style of coaching the outfielders? Because both her and Kelsey Hall, in talking to them, said that you're at the very much a delicate detail, very much the detail and technique in the outfield. So just take me through what's your approach as far as when you coach the outfielders.
Well, it starts, I think, with a high level of expectation. Um, yes, it is to do it well, it is very nuanced. I think to do it well, you have to be locked in minute by minute. I think probably my strength out there is I can help them put the pieces together. I think sometimes as an outfielder, you're asked to do things and you're like, I don't understand why that's important or why it matters. So I guess I've made my lawyerly case as well in the outfield that I'm like, okay, we're going to do XYZ because this is why it's important. And if the ball does this, then you can do this. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But certainly, I do think it starts with just a high level of expectation, but also empowering them, right? That I think sometimes, especially with women, it's easy to fall into that trap of I got to be perfect. I got to be perfect, right? And I tell them all the time, I expect you to be aggressive. I expect you to make big plays. I expect you to be showstoppers. Calculated risk is a thing. We're going to make smart decisions, but I also trust your decisions. So if you dive for a ball you don't catch and you're like, coach, I just, I flat out thought I can make the catch. Okay, cool. Right? Like that's a big deal. That is going to serve you more often than it will not. But we will not make decisions out of fear or you thought I was going to be mad. And I'm like, that's not a thing. Like, we're going to act like adults. We're going to act like pros. We're going to act like ball players. So I do think some of that like human element of empowering them to make aggressive decisions, but trusting what they're going to do. But it is the expectation that once a game, you're going to make a play or make a catch that is going to swing the momentum in this game. And that's, it is because it's a game of momentum. And we talk about that a lot. And they've certainly resonated really well with it.
How much does your attorney background come out of you as you're coaching them there? Because I've heard Kelsey Hall told me like sometimes the attorney in you comes out while you're coaching there, but part of that is players want to know why they got to do certain things, right? You have to explain it to them. That's part, and I would imagine as an attorney background that helps you in that regard, explaining to them why you got to do it a certain way, and be able either whether defensively, offense, whatever, explain to them the details on that. So how much does that come out, and how much does that help you in there? You're coaching.
Yeah. I mean, we work in the business of human capital. So if you're not a strong communicator in whatever your natural style is, I think you're going to have a really hard time doing this for a living. And certainly how I coached and how I spoke to people in my 20s was probably different than my 30s. And, um, I just entered the 40s. So, I don't know. I just think like as life evolves and the generations continue to evolve, because certainly kids are different than, who I was coaching back in 2006, right? That was quite a long time ago, and a lot of life events have happened, and a lot of things have happened in the world, and you have to just continue to adapt, right? But I do think a big strength of this staff is we're smart and we use every single tool we can at our disposal. So the kids have all learned that the days of like see ball, hit ball, or not being able to process information quickly, that's just not going to work. It won't work at a high level, and it won't work on this staff. Um, so some of that is us and how we communicate, right, as staff and humans, and some of that is the kids have just leveled up and been really, really receptive to it as well.
And what you mentioned the staff, one of the new members on the staff is Josh Bloomer, who's going to be running your offense. How does he fit in there? Take me through that process of bringing him in after Jimmy Colitis decided, hey, to kind of step away from Division One softball and do other things outside of the Division One. But you bring in Josh right away, and how's that been going and fitting in with the players as they get to know each other?
Yeah, I mean, I adore Bloom. So he's been a dear friend for, my gosh, almost 10 years now. Um, a long time, and our families have known each other. So the human element I knew was, which is one of the most important pieces to me, I knew was going to line up just fine. But my goodness, he's brilliant. He is systematic. He is constantly locked in. He's very intense, but he's extremely consistent, right? So like the kids again have just leveled up, I think, into that thought process and how we attack things offensively and how much we track and why we track things. He's a very intelligent man and certainly has an answer for all of it. We don't do anything to just waste time, or we don't track things to track, right? Like that's all tangible information that we use to make the best decisions we can. But he connects with the kids, I think, in a really meaningful way. Um, they trust him, I trust him, and it's been a happy fit. I love my staff, right? You have Josh, and then you've got Jeremy and Haley, and they are loyal and they are smart and they work so hard and they're so good to the kids too. Um, I just I just feel really, really grateful that they all chose to be here, right? And be on this. The early years are tough. They are. They're many ways they create the foundation and they shape the what's to come. But it can be a thankful part of the process, I guess a thankless part of the process sometimes. So the fact that they continue to stay and, train the kids and love them well. And we're like building this thing we are really proud of and is going to, it's special. Just
Well,
happy we're here.
very happy. And he's got to be happy to be working with players like Tanya Windle and Kelsey Hall. What have they meant to your program? I know they're among your leaders offensively, but also leaders in general. Just speak to those two, both coming off great seasons. They were your two top leading hitters, top of the order, and they'll be back this year to lead this young team.
Yeah. I mean, Kelsey and Tanya they're great. They're great humans. I'd say great kids, but they, I think the cool piece to watch them kind of grow and develop as young women, as starting to embrace having the hard conversations, right? Because that's inevitable and that's a big piece of our leadership council here. But they do it in a way like they're starting to find that balance of getting the point across, but there's always a tactful and thoughtful way to deliver any hard message. And so to watch those two start to work through that process, um, it does. That's not easy, right? For a, 23, 21-year-old kid to speak to their peers about tough things sometimes, or I don't know, tell me something that they know I'm not going to like, but they're like, okay, this is happening and you need to know. But they're both so loyal and really they work so hard and they sacrifice for their teammates, and they produce and they do a really good job, I think, on and off the field. And some of that is, especially with so many young kids and so many new kids, hasn't always been the easiest task of like, hey, we don't talk to each other like that here. That's not what we do here. Right. And I think there's a lot of power in that phrase, but building culture isn't always sparkles and sunshine, right? Like you have to set boundaries. You have to sometimes just kind of stop people in their tracks, right? And continue to, I think, protect the whole and protect our messaging. And both of them have just done an outstanding job. Like they're people I trust, they're young people I trust, and they're young people I enjoy. And they're great ball players. So I don't know that you can probably get a higher compliment than that.
Oh, that's pretty high praise. And who are some of the other players that will help them in the offensive side and contribute and perhaps be the heir apparents to Windle and Hall as far as the big focal points of the offense? Who are some players, the young players you expect to contribute?
Yeah, I think Mejia and Ho Ching, I think, are certainly going to do some really nice things at the top of the lineup. Um, of course, Kelsey, Tanya, yeah, Sam Swan, Aiden Allen has been a really nice, consistent power threat for us, really, since she stepped back on campus in August. Aiden was a transfer into the program and got some time last year. She was another one, man. She put on like 10 to 15 pounds of muscle this summer and she got after it and got in the cage. Of course, Katie Chester, I think, is certainly a very serious power threat, right? Katie came to us from one of the SEC schools and she continues to grind and work and get better. Um, but she certainly understands the task, right? She's been a part of a couple postseason runs. So yeah, it's going to it's going to be a fast offense. We can run a little bit again. We've got, three or four kids, I think, consistently drive the ball out of the park. But right now it's going to be a tough offense to defend. That's going to be the intention and the goal. So not only a lot of kids with great hand-eye coordination and they've worked really, really hard on their barrel control this year. That was extremely important to us. Like the swing and miss drives me absolutely bananas, or getting beat the same way in multiple at bats, and that's unacceptable. It just is, right? So we're going to be tough to defend. We're going to use our wheels. We're going to use our barrel control, at anything at our disposal to be able to push runs across the plate. Um, it's, but I'm excited. Not only is Bloom an excellent hitting coach, but he's such a high processor. I feel like there's so much about an opposing team's defensive setup and how our offense can match up against that and how we can gain a base or two or push a run across the plate. Like he's a he's a really bright offensive coordinator in himself. So I'm excited when we put our heads together to see what we come up with.
Yeah, is it? Does he? What's his style like with the players? Because I mean, I'm sure he's a little different than Jimmy, but how different is he than Jimmy? What's his style like, and how long does it take you to kind of adjust to his style, and he adjust to what your style is?
Yeah, I mean they're both very, very good at what they do, right? I think, um, but they're a little different in certain ways. Like I said earlier, Bloom is he's so bright. He's extremely consistent, but he is consistently running at like an 8 out of 10 on the intensity scale. And the girls know it. And they know that's every cut they take, right? Like he's got eyes on somebody, he's watching, there's intentionality, we're tracking. And I think it has created this day in and day out pressure cooker a little bit. It also helps, like as our floor has come up, there's a lot of really good ball players in the mix that I think people are going to have to just get time early on and produce and win spots. Like there's some really nice competition, between the kids and who can play where and who's going to get time, that it certainly probably helped feed into, I think, his coaching style, right? Very intense. You are constantly accountable for your body of work. And it's not just about getting the perfect swing off. Like he's teaching them to hit. He is teaching them to problem solve with a bat. And again, we spend a ton of time on barrel control. So um, the kids have certainly leveled up, and I think they have embraced him. And it's going really, really well. But yeah, they're just different. I think Jimmy likes to crack more jokes, you know.
Jimmy definitely does. That is nobody's going to compete with Jimmy though when it comes to that category. All right, that's going to be unique there from his standpoint. I mentioned it. It's new for Arizona State to the Big 12, but it's not new for you. Like, I'm even thinking, like, I feel like you've coached at every park in the Big 12. Like, you've coached at UCF, for example, before from your previous stints at Ball State. I want to say you've coached it in Houston or something. I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong in this, but do you feel like, in a way, you kind of have a cheat code here a little bit because you kind of know the areas, or nothing's new to you. You have to tell your players that, but like where there's Utah and Arizona have to adjust to new settings. You don't have to adjust because you've seen some of these places. Do you feel like you have an advantage in that regard?
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's some familiarity. I don't know if we're going with cheat code quite yet. But yeah, I I I certainly feel comfortable with the move forward and where we're at and excited about the program this year. But yeah, it'll be a bit of a blast from the past. So we're just, again, we're excited, we're ready to get going, and certainly proud to be members of the Big 12 conference. I think in all the things going on in college athletics right now, and you've got some teams having to go coast to coast to coast, right? Like just to play conference games. The fact that, Arizona as well as ourselves ended up in what's I mean, really a fairly tight geographic pocket, I guess, really from us to Houston. UCF's really the only geographic outlier. And we're both lucky we have the luxury of Sky Harbor, right? So to get from our airport to MCO is not so bad. We can do that fairly easily. So, yeah, I think we will have the girls well prepped and well prepared, and they'll have little, what are those heat things that they stick in their hot hand warmers? We'll have them in toe warmers and hand warmers, and they'll be ready to go.
Listen, I haven't heard anybody complain about going to Tempe or Tucson, and definitely have not heard anybody complain about coming to Orlando. So that's the positive. All right, might be a little trip, and you know that as well as anybody. You've made a few trips yourself there in Orlando with the family and everything. So it's
Sunshine and palm trees make everybody happy. This is what I know.
very
It's all
good.
about the sunshine and the palm trees.
Exactly. My last question to you is: what are you looking forward to finding out about your team once you get going on opening day and beyond that first weekend or two, and you find out about this young group? What are you looking forward to finding out that about your team when you play other competition that'll help determine the season?
Yeah. I think what I'm most looking forward to is when we really start to play some elite teams. Like we've got a fairly tough postseason. When we get into some of those, you know what I mean, just tight matchups and we can't seem to come up for air and we're working and we're grinding, like are we going to get young? Are we so young we're going to get a little flustered, right? And the confidence starts to wane. Like we're again, they just going to get back to it, wake up the next morning, show up, want to scrap, want to grind, and ready to throw a punch. So I think when our back's against the wall, because sometimes there's some magic that happens when you're that young, like you have a lot of freshmen on the field, and if they're talented and they're going to grind and they're going to be dogs and just, right, let the bad stuff go, embrace the good stuff, and get on to the next pitch, next at bat. There's some magic in that too, because they don't know what they don't know. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, whatever. College softball's hard. It's easy. I don't know. So if we can grab some momentum, right? The pitchers, especially early on, I think we're going to have a lot of young hitters in the lineup, right? So the pitchers can just keep us within a run or two and always give us a shot. We can manufacture a couple runs when and if we need to. I think just to create just create a little bit of calm, right? And a little bit of confidence. The whole season just kind of opens up for us.
You're not
Um,
going easy on them with your scheduling, by the way, at home there. You got some
absolutely,
notable opponents there.
certainly. We got some good ones coming in. But you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And you have to know what it takes to compete at a high level before we get to the Big 12, which is an extremely high level. So they're going to figure it out quick.
They will, and we'll look forward to seeing your team on the field soon enough. But in the meantime, Coach, always a pleasure to catch up with you on the show every year. It's become like our annual get together. But I know the exciting thing is we'll actually cross paths a lot this year. That's the bad news for you. Good news for me, bad news for you is we're going to cross paths a lot, either when you come down at Orlando and then certainly in Oklahoma City for the Big 12 championships. Thanks for always taking the time to talk to us. Stay safe and healthy, and I'm sure I'll see you during the season. But thanks for coming on here on In the Circle and D1 Softball.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Works up.